Hi, welcome to Write More Light. My name is Sarah with the Midwest Writing Center, and I believe we have special guest Ava Miller popping in. Yes, okay, wonderful. I'm super excited to have Ava here with me because they are one of the most fun people I know to talk about horror with, which luckily my spouse doesn't watch these because he's a big horror fan and Ava's way more fun. Thank you for hanging out with me today, Ava.
Yes, of course. Oh my goodness, my room is appropriately spooky because there's no light in here.
Love that you are backlit. It's pretty spooky.
Yeah.
So yeah, today we're talking about horror because it's Halloween.
Awesome.
And so it's cool to have a horror fan with me. I am a novice of horror, but of course I stand with the idea that good writing is good writing, a good story is a good story. The agenda, the layout, the way that we usually do Write More Light is we'll talk about the content of the episode, and then we will move into updates from the Midwest Writing Center and then a writing prompt. So, Ava, hey.
Hello.
Just to put you on the spot, because that's how I do. What do you love about horror?
Oh my goodness. I'm personally somebody who, I don't know, for some reason, like, some stories just don't really do it for me. Like, I was literally talking about this with you yesterday. I always say I hate rom-coms, and then I fall for them so hard. But horror is one of those genres where I'm just like, yes, like, it just appeals to me for some reason. And I have discovered through my traversing the genre over the summer that I like to think about things that like nobody's ever thought about before, like that existential type horror. And I like to think about like, you know, a good monster movie is always a good time, but I also like to think about horror in terms of what humans are capable of doing, and the evil that humans can perpetrate, and then how people can overcome that. And I think that's really cool too.
Yeah. Shoot, you gave me an excellent segue and I totally lost it. Okay, yeah, I'm back. I think, and I, having married a horror fan, I've had a lot of conversations about horror because like I don't personally enjoy being scared, and I know some people do, but I also know that that's not what is the main draw of horror. So I think I've determined there's a few different like subgenres, right? We've got, and I'm going to talk about movies because stories are stories. We've got the slasher, right? There's a murder machine out there. That's what I'm going to call a slasher.
Yeah.
I understand that creature features are their own thing and not necessarily horror, but I'm going to say that like, okay, so I guess that like kaijus are not horror, but my point being, if there's a murder machine out there, maybe it's a monster, maybe it's a, zombie human thing, which is
getting to explore those eldritch abominations.
Thank you. You did it. Oh, that's somebody I should have grabbed. I grabbed some classics, I grabbed some comics, I grabbed some contemporary, but I didn't even think of Lovecraft, which is fine. I don't love Lovecraft. He's a problem. Yeah. Okay, so then we've got supernatural horror, we've got slashers, psychological.
Those are my favorite.
Those are the scariest ones in my opinion. Because they're the most real. Am I missing anything?
I feel like there's a combination between like the thriller and horror type genres. There's sci-fi horror, like those horror movies in space. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm forgetting.
I think there's a lot of overlap there too, though. Like I said, supernatural, and in my head, fantasy and sci-fi are very similar, but the difference is science versus magic, right?
Yeah.
But then like Alien,
turn on some lights.
Alien is kind of a creature feature, right?
Yeah.
But then like also the humans are, spoiler alert if you haven't seen this 30-year-old movie, 40-year-old movie, came out in 79. Don't do math. Okay. But like the humans are also bad guys. It's just that the monster is the big bad, right?
Exactly. That's the
Um,
type I like. I
but
like it where the
really,
humans are just as bad as the monsters.
we've got Sigourney Weaver and a cat, and like at the end of the day, that's what I'm really here for.
Exactly.
Okay, so with some idea of genre in mind, we know there's a famous, it's either like Stephen King or Neil Gaiman, like somebody stupid famous said something along the lines of, it turned out the monsters were people all along.
I remember that. Yeah.
Um, I think that that's really the important thing. Like for me, what freaks me out about like Squid Game is that people enjoy that, right?
Yeah.
So somebody thought of this, and to misquote lots of people, if I can think it, it can happen,
Hmm.
right? And I think that's what really gets to me personally about horror. Like, oh, somebody thought of this. This is absolutely possible.
Hmm.
What gets you about non-human horror?
Um, I think I like non-human horror because I'm a sci-fi writer. That's one of my preferred genres to write in. And so I like to think about what people can think of in terms of like things that are just so opposite from human that like
Like a
we
bump in the night.
yeah. I like looking at different types of monsters. I think that the designs are always so cool. And so whenever I watch a monster movie, I'm always like, where's the monster? I want to see what it looks like. And so that's usually what keeps me going, is because I want to see that, like, kind of, like I said, eldritch abomination, something just so beyond our comprehension. And like you said, like something that I definitely never would have thought of.
I didn't even consider. So, shoot, you reminded me of two things. I'm only remembering one. Love your phrasing, Eldritch Abomination, because normally we just hear monster after that, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. The addition of that word abomination changes the game.
Yeah.
But there's like, and I didn't grab this as one of my display books. Also, I just didn't love the book that much. It was good, but like didn't strike me so hard. But Lovecraft Country, the book, not the show, they're very different. And they both have, I would say probably the show is better. But the thing that's motivating the racism, right? So humans are the real bad guys, but also there are monsters involved. And that's a really cool combination. Like you're fighting to survive for a combination of reasons.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably where the magic really lies. Like with Alien, right? Also, if you haven't seen Alien, dear audience, go see Alien. It's amazing.
It
It's
is.
like
I
one of the
enjoyed
best
Alien.
movies ever.
I also like Predator, but
I've only seen the last half of Predator, and I didn't really get it.
that makes sense.
For folks who haven't seen Predator, there's an alien who's playing the most dangerous game, but with people not his own kind, right? That's
Yeah. But he has rules for himself. That's what comes up in Predator 2. He's got morals too.
All I really got was dreadlocks.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
He looks like he'd be a member of Korn, but like
yeah. Totally off subject. I was watching a show the other day that no, I'm not gonna even say it. It was pretty silly. They compared somebody to Predator visually. Okay. So I think you've heard my little talk on the core tenets of horror. I'm using that term core tenets a lot lately.
As you should.
Absolutely. Totally important phrase. It's a core tenet of my vocabulary.
Yes.
We have so most recently when I gave a horror lesson, I had folks do a reading from Night Rooms, which is nonfiction, which is really fun. It's a very innovative book. I've probably talked about it on Write More Light before, but it's an essay collection, but the author, Gina Nutt, weaves narration of horror films into narration of her real life, and you can't tell the difference. Like there's no font change, there's no, I mean,
That's
there are
crazy.
line breaks, but you can't really tell which is which. And like occasionally there's endnotes where if she's directly quoting, like she quotes Jaws at one point, and so if she's got a direct quote, you can find that in the endnotes, but otherwise you just have to guess. Like you pick up on it eventually, which is which, but like not always, because creepy things happen in life. Which, yeah, super weird book. I do recommend it. Because it's so innovative. I got to interview the author too, and she said that she basically broke up the whole essay collection into paragraphs and then mixed it around.
Oh, I love that.
Right?
That's so cool. I looked it up right now.
Oh, it's so good. I'll lend it to you if, yeah, I'll lend it to you. I was gonna say if I ever see you, I'm gonna see you.
At some point.
It's on my shelf. You can find it. But something she does in each section, which I thought that this was a great book for me personally to learn about horror, because I could break down what was happening because it's paragraph by paragraph, right? So generally speaking, she has an anchoring metaphor, and the metaphor in horror doesn't have to be a metaphor. Sometimes the monster is just a monster, as with cigars. But sometimes, say with a kaiju, the monster is westernization.
Yeah.
So, okay, so there's heavy symbolism in horror when it's good, I think, consistently, even if the monster is just a monster. Because what the characters, and again, the characters don't have to be human, but there are going to be characters because someone needs to be the reader, right? Someone needs to
there's an
know
audience
what they're
stand-in.
experiencing. So we've got bereavement, we've got potential for satire, the things that we're afraid of in real life and how they are displayed through the monster or whatever. The reason too that I want to separate, I mentioned slashers on purpose, and then part of that purpose was to say that's not really what we mean when we talk about horror stories, because slashers sort of exist in their own universe in which, like, you can have a forever killing machine, especially with sequels, right? With Halloween, Friday the 13th. I'll even do Child's Play, which is like my favorite, which is maybe too much information about me. Someone's going to psychoanalyze me for that one. You've got a great story in number one, and then number two, they're like, surprise, undead.
Yeah.
So that's a whole thing, especially with Friday the 13th. I guess, spoiler alert, again, if you haven't seen this 40-year-old movie. In the first movie, maybe this is a real spoiler. I'm not going to say.
I know it. I've never seen the movie, but I know the spoilers, so I don't know if that helps.
Movie, Jason's not the killer. And then we've got 10 or 20, I don't know, I probably own them all, sequels in which Jason is just basically like an undead killing machine.
He just keeps going.
Yeah. There's a really great one, Jason Takes Manhattan. Hilarious.
I've heard of that one, yeah.
Highly recommend that one. It's just bananas. There's no sense to it. So slashers are sort of besides the point in what I think we really want to talk about how to craft great horror. I've insulted a lot of people with that statement. Okay. If you haven't read,
I think that slashers are better suited personally for movies. Like if we're talking about the difference between like books and movies or short stories or whatever, I feel like slashers definitely depend on that visual element of seeing all of these teenagers get hacked to death. I think that might be pleasurable for some people. It's not exactly for me. Like I'm fine with my horror with a heavy dose of gore, but I personally would rather have like some other like thing to go on than knowing that the killer's gonna come back in the next movie.
I will say number one in slashers, like before there are sequels, are usually just top shelf. Okay, so I'm gonna pull out a bunch of books, and if you haven't read them, cool. If you have, I want your takes.
Oh yes.
I'm gonna start with one I know you've read, because the one on top is just Rod Serling's collected stories. So
I love Rod Serling.
you've read Rod Serling?
I love him. I've never read him, but
Okay.
I love the Twilight Zone.
So yes, very old book. Before they I used to have this problem as someone who was alive before Amazon owned everything on the planet, where I would really want a book that was out of print. And
Oh yeah.
now you can buy this book like brand new for $5. But so Rod Serling wrote every Twilight Zone episode that he wrote as a short story.
Yeah.
So I would say you could probably read any of his short stories and just break it up as a study in horror.
Yeah.
What's special, I think, about things like Twilight Zone is that they're unnerving, which is a different kind of scary. It's not, checking under your bed at night, right? It's like it doesn't necessarily exist in the shadows, and it's still creepy.
I've had those differences of like where I'll watch a movie that like genuinely like scares me and I'm kind of scared to walk to my room in the dark, but then I've had other ones where it just sits with me the entire like rest of the week where I'm like, could this happen to me? Like, or like I don't even know, where it's one where like reality is false. I'm like, is that true?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I would say unnerving is probably the word, like most effective.
Yeah.
I forgot to say, we were talking about slashers. You were talking about slashers.
Yes.
I Know What You Did Last Summer. Not a great movie. Is a book. It was a book first.
I heard about that, and I heard that the author didn't like the movie.
I haven't read it. I read something else by that author in junior high. I don't know what the intended audience was. It was probably YA, in which someone could manipulate time. It was super creepy.
That's pretty cool.
It was super creepy. But I think it was so creepy because it could so easily happen. I can't remember her name. It's a woman who wrote them. But that's like her thing. That's what she does. She writes things that seem like they would translate really easily to screen, and they're creepy.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie I Know What You Did Last Summer?
I have like seen clips of it. This is something that my roommate always talks about. We'll ask her if she's seen a movie and she's like, I've seen so many clips on YouTube, it's like I've seen it.
That's not quite right. There's something to be said about the order of movies go in and the length of them. I don't think anyone really needs to see that movie. But I will do a shout out to local writer Lauren Alexis Wood. She did I think I have it. Don't honestly know where it is. I don't think it's on my local author shelf here to my right. But she did like a comedic retelling of I Know What You Did Last Summer, and it's really fun. But also, like, if you can do that easily with a story, like maybe it's not that scary. Not to undermine her talent. Okay, to a book I know you've read. I have not read this one.
Yes. I love it so much.
So I understand the premise is that the shape spirals are taking over a town.
Yes.
Can you talk about what makes this effective? I will add, this is manga. I brought a lot of comics because I don't think comics get enough shine. And also that's most of the horror that I own is comics.
Yes. So I love that one because it's a slow burn. And also like Junji Ito is such a good artist. Like everything is so detailed and it's visceral. That there's a lot of body horror in that one, which is another kind of subgenre of horror that I really appreciate, seeing how the human body can contort in weird ways that I don't want my body to be in. People can like turn their bodies into spirals after a while. I don't think that's a spoiler, but also not as much of a spoiler, but you're gonna leave with more questions than you have answers, which I think is even scarier than a lot of things. Just there's I think that the author is also known for that kind of tendency to have these like terrifying stories where there's no answer and you just don't know why this is happening and it's up to you to figure out why. So I think giving the audience their own space to create their own kind of horror is always a really good tactic. I actually had that happen in a creative writing course the other day.
I was really scared that happened to you in real life. Okay.
No, I did not turn into a spiral. But somebody wrote a murder story where the character ended up dying. And he left his ending ambiguous. And someone in my class didn't like that ending, and he said that I'm totally shading him right now, and I'm gonna see him in an hour. So Seth, if you're watching, screw you. You can't, don't workshop ever. But
what a compliment.
Yeah. So he was saying that he didn't like this guy's ending because it didn't feel complete, and he wanted like the killer to bury the girl. And I said no, like it was the ending that it had was perfect because he left it ambiguous. The impression that I got was that the killer was going to take the corpse with him. So that was even scarier than the killer burying the corpse, because like the author had never outright stated it, but that's what I came up with. And that scared me more than a concrete ending.
Yeah, that's a really, I think that's a really good point. That when horror movies wrap up nicely at the end, it undermines the horror a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Like, obviously, if it's truly terrifying, you don't want the audience to like not be able to sleep for a week, but like there is that fun right? part.
I know, so granted, I haven't seen this since I was 13. I'm told it's not a very good movie, but like the Blair Witch Project messed me up because it ends with this video. I mean, it's found footage, right? Mm-hmm. Which creeps me out already. Yeah. My suspension of disbelief just disappears, or is really good when it's found footage. Like I buy into it right away. But it ends too, like the camera just drops and, you know, the bad thing is happening. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't sleep after seeing that because it ended with no happy bow at the end. Like, what's that movie where, where they have that movie and then they need to copy the movie?
Is it
The Ring?
Yeah, The Ring.
Like that one, I felt a little better at the end. I was like, okay, so like if this happens to me, I know what to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'd seen like I think when I was like also like 13, I literally looked it up on YouTube, like the video from The Ring, and I was like, crap, I'm gonna die. Like, because I hadn't seen the movie, I didn't know what I was supposed to do, if it was real. And it's also really creepy because there's like there's no words in it. It's just like all these weird visuals of people crawling out of wells and bugs and stuff, and it's so creepy because there's no explanation.
I saw, so I rented it when it came out. I rented it. That's a thing that people will definitely do. And I put the DVD in and we were going to watch it, whoever I was with, my parents, I don't know. And I didn't want the movie to start, and there was something like on the DVD menu that said don't click here or something, so I click it, obviously, and it was the movie, like from The Ring. I was so upset by it. Cool. So you've given me a brand new revelation. Creepier things don't have happy endings, or bows tied at the end. Obviously not happy endings. Okay, here's one. I don't know if you've read this one, but I have.
I have seen the mini film, not the mini film, the made for TV movie, which is,
we don't talk about that.
Yeah, Tim Curry. I like Tim Curry. That's all I have to say. He's very effective as Pennywise.
I will say, not a scary movie. Also has nothing to do with the book. This book. So I haven't read a ton of Stephen King. You know that, but the world doesn't. Also, I had a Stephen King example in my last video, so it's going to seem like I'm lying, but I've read.
And if we talk about The Shining, I'll be here forever. So
well, I haven't read it, luckily.
I read it.
But what is so, I mean, it's a bajillion pages, right?
Yeah.
So effective about Stephen, I'm not going to say about Stephen King. I don't know him well.
Yeah.
But about this book is that, like you said, it's a slow burn. We go back and forth in time, and learn the whole history of each individual of this town. And the more we learn about this monster, the monster is it. It is not a clown. The clown is a form it takes.
Mhm.
And it's a creature that's existed since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Which makes it, hard to kill, right?
All the more horrifying.
Right. The more we learn about it, the creepier it becomes. And I think probably because of the vagueness.
And like a creature that has more knowledge than you do. I think that's the dramatic irony of like both the characters and then you being in the position of the character is always pretty scary.
But he also delves into that element of, so it appears as whatever you most fear.
Mhm.
And
It would be Ladybugs for me.
Oh no.
I'm so scared of Ladybugs.
So there's a character who experienced a ton of abuse as a child. And so, her abuser is what appears to her. And like when she's a child trying to escape the abuse, she's in her like safe place and then it creeps up, right? That's a pretty gorgeous scene, both in the new movie and in the book, where like the sink, she's hiding in the bathroom, becomes like bloody and opens up, and where one of the other kids is afraid of a werewolf movie.
Yeah.
So like his is a ridiculous, like bad werewolf, but like that's what he's scared of. So it does this really, really excellent, like you said, slow burn to get to get into you. And there's also like no, like if there is this monster who just is your greatest fear, like how do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with that?
If you haven't figured out how to deal with it in your real life, like then it's hard to figure out when it's like literally chasing you and you can't figure out what's going on.
Also, what if that thing is like failure or the dark, right? You can't.
Then it won't go away.
Yeah. What else do I have here? Okay, this one's a kid's book. I think technically it's a kid's book, but I sort of reject that. I think it's just a really gorgeous, wonderful book. A Monster Calls.
I haven't read that one.
Oh my god, it's so good and gorgeous. It's illustrated.
Oh yes, that's something else that I thought of actually. When you said kids book, my mind immediately went to scary stories to tell in the dark.
And part of that was the pictures.
Yeah, it was mostly the pictures. I remember like looking at the stories and just kind of being like, eh. But then like I remember there's one picture in particular of the woman who had like the really scraggly hair, who was really thin and had like this skeletal face, and I couldn't even look at it. Like when I read that part of the book, I didn't want to touch the page because it scared me so much.
I understand in reprintings they did less creepy pictures, which
they changed out the pictures, which just killed it.
Yeah, undermines the whole thing because the stories are like a page long.
Yeah.
I own that. I specifically didn't grab it because while I think we could read one and like use that as our example, I figured people either have read it or won't read it. Yeah. So what's really wonderful about A Monster Calls is it is literally about monsters, but it's also about this child dealing with his sick mother and like all the and it's a child. I want to say he's like 8 or 10, and all of the terrible things that come with having a sick mother. That might be a spoiler now that I think of it.
That's okay. I'll forget. I'll erase it from my mind.
God, it's so good. I recommend this to everyone because there's look how gorgeous that cover is.
Yeah.
I think it's a movie, which I haven't seen, and I don't even know if I want to because this is so beautiful. It's a super fast read too because it's illustrated and the font is big. And the story is so compelling. But it deals with that intersection of things that go bump in the night, and real life
Mhm.
terror. So I guess we have a theme going. Do you have anything that you want to mention? Any books while I dig through this pile?
I was trying to think about that. I know we have a book in common here that
I
I'll
have it right
pull
here
off my
too.
shelf.
I grabbed it thinking of you.
Hey. Yep. I got this on a blind date with a book. It was wrapped in like the butcher paper and at the local bookstore. And what I think it said like graphic novel, body horror, sci-fi. And I was like, that's so right up my alley. So I
Yeah.
just chose it. And I have not gotten very far in it yet, but I like the illustrations in it.
Gorgeous.
I like how like blocky they are. Yeah.
I haven't read it. I went on like a horror comic book buying spree, and
Yeah.
oh, I didn't grab the best one. It's called, I want to say it's called Infidel, and it's about a Muslim woman who is in like this, it feels to me like an HOA situation, right? So she's in this like apartment building where there's lots of strict rules, but then the things that go bump in the night are, I want to say they're also racist. Definitely haven't finished it, but the art is above and beyond, and it's creepy as hell. I'm going to move into a classic, Frankenstein.
Yes.
And next to Frankenstein, I'm going to put Dracula, which is a really dope cover.
Oh, that is very cool.
I think we got this in Europe. Yes, it has pounds. It was 16 pounds. So we got it in England. These are both British books, but this one I bought in America. They're both epistolaries, which I think is like the book version of found footage, right?
Yeah. Letter writing campaigns. I love epistolary.
Me too. We all know that. That's like things you know about me. I write and I like letters. They're both combos though. They're both letters and diaries and a little bit of like found scraps.
Yeah.
And they both deal with a monster. But they also both deal with what is a monster.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely found a theme here today.
Yeah.
The monsters were people all along.
Exactly.
For folks who haven't read Dracula, it is actually for folks who haven't read either of these, neither of them are what the movies told you they were.
Exactly. Dracula is this little shrimpy guy with weird hair and like he looks like a little shriveled old man.
You're right.
Dracula's not the scary Bela Lugosi Widow's Peak guy.
I love this cover.
Yes.
Like who did that art? I gotta find that art. And they're also both old. That's what I'm saying. They're both old.
Yeah.
So I think for that reason, they rely on they don't get to be as graphic, which I think means that they force more creativity.
Yeah, there's a lot of something I have noticed. I don't know if it's personally my thing, but I've noticed in a lot of horror stories, there's a lot of like hints at violence and not like actual graphic scenes. And
yeah, part of that is probably because our imagination is powerful.
Yeah.
But I think it's also, if it's all body horror, then a lot of it's shock value.
Mm-hmm.
Did I interrupt you? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. That was what I was going to say.
I also, so we watched the movies that made us about the movie Halloween recently, and I really, really love Halloween. And they said, like from the outset, part of it was because their budget was like $3,000 or something ridiculous, like something very small. I don't think I'm exaggerating. It was less than 10 grand. They didn't have any gore. And I never noticed that watching Halloween. I've seen that movie at least 10 times.
Yeah, and I heard it's the same with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like most of the kills happened off screen because it was super hot and they didn't have a big budget.
So I just saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the first time, and I cannot remember if I think you're right that the kills happen off screen, but it is still gory.
It's more gory than like expected. Yeah. There's a lot of like skeletons and
Flesh. There's a lot of flesh.
Yeah.
But with Halloween,
not so much like people in the process of defleshing, but like flesh that has already been defleshed, if that makes any sense.
Exactly. And also in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like the anticipation is really the scary thing. But Halloween has a single scene with blood in it.
Oh wow.
Right. Have you not seen Halloween?
I haven't.
Oh my god, it's so good. Watch it. It's so good. I was shocked when I learned how good that it was.
I'm gonna pirate it.
But I'll lend it to you.
Oh, thank you.
You don't have to admit on the internet that you break rules. I might have a spare copy, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
What was I gonna say? Don't know. It's so good. Wow, it's so good. So I introduced this topic by saying horror doesn't come naturally to me as a thing to be a fan of. So when I saw Halloween, I was shocked by how good it is, and that just goes back to the point that a good story is a good story.
Yeah.
And that low budget forces creativity, or if you're old timey and you're not allowed to say cuss words or whatever, you also have to be more creative, which is always better, I think.
Yeah. I like that reminds me, it's not horror, but like the Hays Code, or the Hays Code movies, where there was all of these things in place where you couldn't say swear words, you couldn't allude to sex, you couldn't have any violence. And so they had to like get really creative if they wanted to have like queer characters, and they had to insinuate a lot of stuff. And I remember, I think it was the Maltese Falcon, they had to say something in a completely different language to indicate that a character was gay. And it got past the censors, and so like that went on to be kind of groundbreaking in that regard.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
There's also this has nothing to do with horror, but I know that I Love Lucy was the first show to feature a pregnant person, and they could not say the word pregnant. So like several euphemisms were invented by that show that we use today, like with child.
Expecting. Yep.
They
had to, I remember the title was that like it said that it was pregnant in French.
Oh wow, that's so fun. Okay, back to braining. I think you would love this book, and I will totally lend it to you if you want. This is to Sarah's lending library day. The Memory Police. Do you know this book?
That looks so cool. I don't know it, but I love the cover.
Amazing. So it's about a place where gosh, okay. Things disappear, including concepts.
That is very cool.
Yeah. And there are a few people who remember things, and a few times when like those people who remember have, like, let's say pens disappear, they would literally disappear, and also so would the concept of a pen from your brain. So let's say one pen didn't disappear, and then people would see it and have no idea what it was, cool, whatever, but occasionally one person would remember, and that person then would be taken away. So it's creepy as all get out, because it exists like in this world. It's not removed from our reality in the telling, but of course, like, that seems like a pretty crazy concept.
You reminded me of something else.
Go for it.
There's I'm a huge fan of David Lubar, and I will die on that hill. Love David Lubar. He's the one who writes he has like a series of like 9 books now that are like the Weenies series. So the first one is In the Land of the Lawn Weenies, and it's a book of short stories. And there's one in the second book where a girl, if she like breaks something at a thrift shop that someone told her not to break, or it's a like a yard sale, and from then on anything she touches starts to disappear and nobody has any memory of it. And so at the very end, I don't know, it's like a 4-page story, so I don't know if we're worrying about spoilers.
So
right now.
short.
Yeah, it's so insane how much he gets done in like so few pages. But at the very end of the story, she grabs her own head and then
That's what I was gonna ask.
yeah,
Okay, what's this guy's name? How do you spell it?
David Lubar.
Is that like Lubar?
Yeah.
I mean,
He's
I've got a
fantastic.
notepad instead of a notebook. I have my notebook here, but no. David Lubar. Cool. That sounds creepy as hell and digestible in a sitting.
Yeah, it's made for, it's like a YA audience, but I love them. I have loved them since I was a wee child, and I stole a book from my 4th grade classroom. I'll pay someday.
I definitely stole Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs from my elementary school library.
Oh, yeah.
No regrets.
Yeah.
The last book I have, question mark? Yes. Is, so my, gosh, in my top 5 books of all time, and I know this, I had to make a list for a job application recently.
Ooh.
I'm not leaving, don't worry. But they asked for your top 5 favorite books, and the first 4 were super easy for me, and the 5th one was like, but I have 3 more books I want to list, right?
I don't even know. I know my top one.
What is
That's
it?
In Cold Blood.
Nice.
I
was like, what nonfiction horror do I have? In Cold Blood. That's the answer.
Yeah, true crime.
Midnight
think that falls in really
Evil. True crime. We should have a true crime episode.
I will be there. I'll show up unannounced.
It's actually a
just pop
genre
in.
I've never read.
What?
I haven't read that genre at all. It was
Oh my goodness. I can recommend so many.
Please do. Obviously, In Cold Blood and Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil are both on my list. I own them already. But that's all like since 2020. That's been my like reading New Year's resolution, is read genres that I've never read. So last year I read romance. I read I haven't really tried this year, to be honest. I read fantasy. I think that's it, really. Genres I don't read. So rewinding, one of my top 5 favorite books, period, no question. You ask me to list my top 3, it's up there too. Is In the Dream House, which, did you get to read it?
I didn't get to read it, but we read another story by the same author for both my electronic lit class and my fiction writing class.
Yeah, so Carmen Maria Machado is like a god of writing, and I would say In the Dream House could be used standalone for an entire class on form, and you just have every single form as sections of that book. And I would say a good function, a primary element of that book is horror, because it is about real life, but it's about a very scary thing. That said, that is not the book I have for you today. The book I have for you today is by Carmen Maria Machado, In the Low, Low Woods. It's insane. Also, the inside cover is creepy too.
I do like that.
It's about a town where people keep forgetting things. I don't know if yeah, I'm not going to give any spoilers. It is very creepy. The art is so good. Like, it is
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
Sorry, let me rephrase. The women in this town have amnesia. It's so good. And the point of bringing up that Carmen Maria Machado is like in the top tier of all writers of all time is that this is a comic which, you know, is a genre that we don't take very seriously, by, you know, a writer's workshop grad, by a book award finalist, right? So this is a woman who knows writing. And she has written, she's got a book of essays, she's got a book of short stories. She can do any form she wants. So
I don't know if you know the story that we read, but it's called Help Me Follow My Sister into the Land of the Dead. It takes the form of a GoFundMe. I'll send you the link.
Love it.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like the main character's trying to raise money to go to the land of the dead to find her sister. She has to go through a portal in Bethlehem. And so she's kind of regretfully asking, like going on a GoFundMe and saying, like, can you give me some money?
The most innovative writer of all time.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's so genius.
Yeah. Also, very important to note is that the comments section is not part of the website. It is part of the piece. So read the comments.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's so good. Was that for electronic lit?
Yeah, it was for electronic lit and then fiction writing. It got brought up again.
The same story.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're getting close on time. We have given you, sorry, did you have more you wanted to recommend?
I don't think so. I think that's it. If I think of more, I will like send you something.
Dope. That was both totally and dope.
Yeah.
So we've given lots of examples of books and stories to investigate that are classic, contemporary, highbrow, less highbrow. I'd say lowbrow. I don't really feel like that's
something we talk about in media. I'm a film and media studies major, and something that we talk about is there's no such thing as highbrow or lowbrow. If you like it, that is your choice, and that is important to you.
Beautiful. I was gonna say, like, I don't really jive with that. And also because I don't really jive with the idea of lowbrow, I immediately am like, well, if it's lowbrow, is it porn? So yeah, I'm not recommending that to you. Sorry, everyone. So to leave you with the prompt, because no, I'm gonna give updates first. I'm gonna do this in the same format that I always do. And I'm still gonna let Ava go when they need to. What's coming up at the Midwest Writing Center? On the 11th, we've got the release of the Foster Stall chapbook series, the inaugural publications. Super exciting. We've got that'll be at Ross Talks at a time. The books will be available for purchase there. The authors will be there. That is Laura A. Ring, a professor in Chicago, and Aubrey Ryan. I always want to call her Aubrey Plaza. Aubrey Ryan of Davenport. These are some of the most gorgeous, oh shoot, I have the proofs, but they're not near me. Some of the most gorgeous books. I feel so privileged to be a part of their publication process. Highly recommend that. It will we'll have limited space, so you'll want to come early. We're also going to have some really cool openers for that show. And let's see, coming up in November on Write More Light, we're going to have Liv Mamon. I think that's how you say Liv's last name. I have never asked. We're going to have Laura Ring, that chapbook author I just mentioned. Her book is called Field Notes, Recovered from the Expedition to Devil's Peak. It is a really gorgeous found poetry project. We're also, of course, going to have Aubrey Ryan talk about her book Choir, which, so great. If you were at Block Party, you saw her read a little bit from it. It is so next level. We're going to have the owner of the Artsy Bookworm in November. That's November. So, okay, with that writing prompt, I'm going to put 5 minutes on the timer. I was thinking about chickening out and not hanging out for this writing prompt. Ava, of course, is welcome to leave before our 5 minutes are up. And you're going to choose an anchoring metaphor. So something that is creepy, right? A monster, a thing that goes bump in the night, like a clown, a shark, a ghost, a kaiju. and use that as your anchoring metaphor. For example, boats represent fear meaning death or uncertainty. This idea I came up with because as a child, I would beg to go on Disney cruises. There were very convincing commercials. And my dad would always say, my family has bad luck with boats, which sounds super effing ominous, right? But the fact is, my grandma was an immigrant. She thought she was going to the US. She ended up in Cuba. So like my dad
We
was
talked
really
about that in my Global South class.
Yeah?
Yeah, we talked about how people who couldn't like read English in Europe, like parts of Europe, would get on a boat to go to the United States and would get sent to South America.
Yeah, no, that's there's a lot of, my family's Armenian. There's a lot of Armenians in South America. And I don't know the specifics, but I imagine it's pretty close to that. I also imagine poverty's involved.
Yeah.
So with this concept, my family has bad luck with boats. You know, as a child, I have no concept of what that means. So let's say our character, narrator or not, ends up on a boat with this in mind. My family has bad luck with boats. So the boat, or maybe the water, is my thing that goes bump in the night. And I'll go from there. I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock. You can take the same, you can use the story about boats, credit my dad for it when you're done. Or not, you know, or you could choose, like, I often just, when I'm doing prompts, choose something that's sitting near me. So like if for whatever reason you're afraid of nail polish, then this is cute, this is a skull.
That is cute.
Go for it. Like anything can be scary, and if not, like this is just a free ride.
I wrote one once about ladybugs. Like I said, I'm afraid of ladybugs, and I wrote a piece where ladybugs symbolized not listening to someone. So whenever the person, like the narrator, was being a bad friend, they'd get like swarmed by ladybugs.
That's amazing. You're a genius, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm so serious. That's so genius. Like I really had to dig for my family has bad luck with boats. Yeah, so as always, I often end up just doing this as like a journal because it's hard for me. I feel a lot of pressure, whatever. But let's just think about horror for 5 minutes. Ava, if you've got to go, I understand. But
I do. I have class.
Write more light into your life.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. See you later.
Bye. Friends who are still with me, I'm getting to my rewrite. I'm writing in my lap. You can't see, but it is true. I had a moment of genius. I started with this premise: my family has bad luck with boats. And I said my husband is a sailor. Talked about the traditional sailor tattoos and said these totems keep him safe, or they did before he married me. I'm very proud of them. My spouse is not a sailor. Just to put that out there. "45 seconds left." Okay, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you, Ava, for the excellent conversation about horror. I find talking with other people who are passionate about a topic to be really energizing. So I'm always really, really grateful when I've got a guest on here. To everyone out there, I hope that you had a good start to your story. I'm pretty proud of mine. I didn't really expect anything to come of it. And I'm going to keep at it, at least, ooh, had a shiver for a couple sentences. As always, please write more light into your life.